What's up, guys? So I wanted to get on here and talk about share a story that happened a few months ago, about 5 months ago, where I actually made someone, I can't say I made them, but they walked out of the gym in the middle of a roll with me. And some background on myself: this was a gym I was training at for a few months, a gym I was well accustomed to. I knew the coaches pretty well, I knew most of the guys there. Um, So it was a Friday, and someone who I hadn't seen before came to the gym, right? He was a 3-stripe white belt, and I figured maybe it was a visitor or something, but I did hear that he actually used to be a member at that gym, and I believe he was out for about a year or so with some kind of injury. So that I heard that later on after the fact. So we started rolling. I was kind of getting collar ties on him, and he kind of stopped. He said, "Hey, I don't want to have a hard roll. Let's just go slower." I said, "That's fine," right? So we continued rolling, still flow rolling. I was able to get him inside control. He kind of worked and escaped, got in turtle. And I did a move that actually my coach at the time showed me, where you pretty much reach under the belt, reach under their ankle, and you kind of fall back and kind of kickstand and make him do a forward roll. I'll put a video up so you guys can see the move. With that move, he just kind of snapped. He started really turning it up on me and picking up the pace. And in the process, he actually headbutted me kind of in the lip. And I'll put a picture of that so you guys can see that. And I'm not saying it was intentional. I don't know. It's grappling. Things happen. I've been kneed. I've been eye poked. had low blows happen. Even with guys who are experienced, even rolling with purple belts, I've had stuff like that happen. Things happen in grappling. I'm not going to sit here and say the guy deliberately kind of headbutted me in the jaw or whatever, but this could be on me too, because I don't wear a mouth guard. I should wear a mouth guard. So, it did kind of bust up my lip a bit. But we continued rolling, and from there I was like, okay, he wants to turn it up. So I turned it up as well. And I was able to pull him in guard, and I was able to actually get him with a flower sweep. And once I was in mount, I was putting a lot of pressure. And to be straightforward, a lot more pressure than I normally would put on someone who I have quite a bit of a weight advantage on, right? I don't know how much the guy weighed, but I outweighed him by probably at least 50 pounds. So, and again, keep in mind, I felt like I was just matching his pace, right? Because he really turned it up, and we'll get more to that later. So I had him in mount, putting a lot of pressure on him. Maybe 15, 20 seconds go by. He taps, then he says, "I'm going home." I saw that, I was like, okay. And then he walks past the coach who's sitting watching everyone and says, "I'm going home." Walks right out of the gym, right? I look at the coach, I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't know what just happened. I don't know what's going on. The guy left, got in his car. And so I talked to the coach after. This wasn't the head coach of the gym, by the way. This was an assistant coach who teaches the Friday and Sunday classes, I believe. Guy who I have a good relationship with. So he came at me actually saying, "You need to dial back your strength." I'm like, dude, listen, I wasn't using my strength. I was just matching his pace, right? And from there, I felt like, in a way, I was kind of getting gaslit, right? So I was a little bit aggravated about him saying that and trying to make it sound like I went too hard on him and he left. But so I talked to the head coach about it. I'm like, listen, I just want to train in an environment that's drama free. I don't want any problems. I even told him, I was like, for the sake of the video, we'll call the guy Bob, right? So I said, listen, I don't want any problems with Bob. I have no personal issue with him. We had a roll. This happened. I would shake the guy's hand. I would talk to him. I have no issue. And he said, okay, let me talk to him, and then I'll talk to you when you're here. Because I messaged him over Instagram. And he said, let me talk to you when you're here on the Monday class, and I'll talk to him. So I showed up, and he actually did talk to him. And I guess what the guy said is, he actually openly said, he's like, yeah, I turned it up on him. I shouldn't have done that. He matched my pace. And, he just said he got a little bit overwhelmed. That's fine. He said he shouldn't have turned it up, or even the coach gave some advice saying maybe he should just stop the roll and said, hey, I just wanted to go to flow pace. We're getting a little bit out of control. And conversely, when he turned it up on me, I could have just said, hey, man, we're getting a bit carried away. I thought you said you wanted a flow roll. Conversely, I could have done the same thing, right? But I was just kind of in the moment, And looking back at it, things happen. It's grappling. I was talking to some other people, people who are black belts, and they've said they've had crazier things happen. Some guy, I guess, was punched in the face in a overall. But yeah, so a few weeks after that, I actually didn't see the guy. And I was hoping, I was like, man, I hope he didn't like leave or switch gyms, because, you know, I really have no issue with the guy, and he shouldn't have a problem. You know, he should. There's no issue with me, and there's no issue with him. That's even what he told the coach. He said there's no issue with Spiro, and I said, yeah, I have no issue with Bob. And so I hadn't seen him for a few weeks, and you know, I was talking to one of these sisters coaches. I said, hey, you know, I haven't seen that guy, and I hope he didn't like leave or stop training. But he's like, oh no, you weren't in the wrong, blah blah blah. And I said, all right. And so I actually ended up seeing him, you know, a few weeks later in one of the Friday classes. And after the class, I shook hands with the guy, said, hey man, it's great to see you here, you know. So it was totally fine with me, you know. And I guess kind of the moral of the story is like, things can happen. I wonder if you guys have had any similar experiences rolling with people. But the reason I wasn't mad at the fact that the roll got out of control or he walked that gym, I was more frustrated at the fact that the coach who was there on that class, right, the assistant coach, was like, oh, you were using too much strength, you're going too hard, you need to know how to roll with people of all sizes. I was like, dude, like, this is insane, this is ridiculous. That's why I had to just kind of vent to the head coach over Instagram, which, you know, looking back at it, I feel bad, but I was frustrated. I didn't know what else to say. I was just like, listen, like, I just want to train in a drama-free environment, and I have no issue with the guy, you know. But what I think is so good about this story, it shows like, you don't need to hold grudges. You don't need to have problems with people. Like, my thing is, on the mat, there shouldn't be any drama, any issues. We leave whatever issues we have at the door. Everyone's different, but it's, you know, I leave my ego at the door. I just am there to train, there to improve. Even with rolling, you know, some people look at rolling as winning and losing. I look at it as training and getting better, you know, trying different things, seeing what works. And if you get punished for it, you know, if you make a mistake, then you can correct those mistakes. Looking at it from a perspective that's not egocentric, right? A perspective that's like, we are here to train. We are training partners. It is not a competition. Now, maybe getting ready for a competition, you would obviously turn things up and have a different mindset, but you know, that's not why I was training there. So, but what I was saying with the guy, right? So I had shaken his hand, saw him, and I actually did end up switching gyms for other reasons, which I'll probably get into maybe in a separate video. I have, you know, good relations with that gym, didn't burn any bridges, great gym. I'm not going to name the gym, but I ended up actually switching gyms, so I never saw the guy again. But, you know, at the very least, we squashed it. We shook hands. There's no issue, and, you know, hopefully he's still training. I'm still training, and yeah, guys, just wanted to share that experience. Curious for you guys in the comments if you had anything kind of weird like that, if you even witnessed something kind of strange happen in a gym, you know, when it comes to rolling, or people just walking out of the gym, whatever. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for viewing. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.